Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Development and Property Committee meeting on Tuesday, November the 14th, 2023 at 9:30 a.m. I'm calling this meeting to order. As we gather this morning, I would like to acknowledge on behalf of Council and our community that we are meeting on traditional territory of the First Nations. We would like to thank the Algonquin people and express our respect and support for their rich history. We are extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We also thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. Has roll call been taken, Evelyn?
Yes, thank you, and we have quorum.
Thank you very much. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof? Seeing none, then we will move to the next item, which is the adoption of the minutes of the previous meeting held on October the 10th, 2023, and October the 25th, 2023. And could I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor from Greater Madawaska, seconded by Councillor from down at Petawawa. Are there any additions, corrections, or omissions? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's carried. So this morning, I will turn it over to Director Davis to introduce our delegation. And go ahead, Mr. Davis.
Well, thank you, Chair, and good morning, committee. I'm pleased to announce and introduce our two guests for the delegation today to talk about communal services. What they have, what they'll present to us today is heard by some individuals as a game changer for some development in rural areas like Renfrew County and Frontenac County. So we have on screen with us Mr. Kelly Pender, the CAO of Frontenac County, and Joe Gallivan, the Director of Planning and Economic Development for Frontenac County. And we've partnered with Frontenac County for a number of initiatives, and I'm pleased that they're here to give us this presentation. And I also, to acknowledge Councillor McKenzie, who about 2 weeks ago talked about this idea and introduced us to this concept in a future meeting, and I appreciate that, Councillor. So it kind of timed well with what we have today as a delegation. So, Chair, if I may, we have our delegation.
Thank you, and welcome, gentlemen, and please go ahead.
Thank you. Ellie, you want to say something first?
Yeah, just a big thank you for inviting us, and we wish we could be there in person, but today is also Frontenac Business Awards Day, so we're kind of tied up at this end as well. But you know, Frontenac, very much like much of rural Renfrew, we have our challenges with rocks and trees and lakes and things. And my in-laws are from Pembroke and Mattawa, so quite familiar with your territory as well. My brother currently lives on Fraser Road in downtown Burnstown, so you know, we understand the challenges that rural communities face in Frontenac. You know, we've been working diligently over the last 4 or 5 years to develop a solution that will bring vitality to our rural communities. Joe will begin by giving you a background on the steps we've taken, you know, both on the technology side and on the planning side, and I'll conclude with just a brief discussion about how we're doing it on the governance side. So over to you, Joe.
Thank you, Kelly, and good morning, staff and members of the committee. It's a pleasure to speak to you this morning. A couple things before I talk. First of all, Director Davis, I want the committee to know that many years ago when I first started working for Frontenac County, I had to set up a GIS system. I didn't have any idea how to do that, and Jason came to my rescue and got it up and running. So thank you, Jason. I will not forget that. Also, before I started with Frontenac, I spent 7 years with municipal affairs, and I was assigned Renfrew. So I always call it God's country. It's just a beautiful area. Fortunate to spend a lot of time up there, and I worked with Bruce Howarth and Charles Cheeseman and Jim Hunt in putting together your first county official plan, which was, I know, was a big step forward for you. So really glad to be speaking to you virtually. Kind of wish I was there in front of you today and in Pembroke, but. So we'll go through, I'll go through the first part about how we got to where we are now. And then Kelly will speak about the utility that we're setting up, on the verge of setting up, and what that means for us. And the other message I will say to you is, well, a couple of things. First of all, this work, even though it took us 7 years, is because we were the first to challenge it and to look into it in detail. but it really isn't rocket science. It's not really hard to do. And secondly, the model that we've created that Kelly will talk to you about is easily transferable to any other jurisdiction, to any other county or municipality in Ontario. So, is the slide deck up and ready? I don't see it. Okay, thank you, Evelyn. Okay, so if you can go to the next slide, please. Just quickly, what we're going to talk about, why we're doing this, and it's been a road. It's taken us about 7 years, and I'll explain why. I'll quickly go over 3 projects that we have been working on the last couple of years that are ready to go. I'll go through them quickly, and if you have any questions afterwards, I'd be happy to answer them for you. And then Kelly will talk to you about this utility that we're setting up and where we are now and where we're going. Next, please. First part, why are we doing this? So if you can go to the next slide. So in Frontenac County, unlike some of your municipalities in Renfrew, none of our communities have full municipal water or sewer services, and we never will. We have 4 townships. None of them have a really large tax base, and it's fiscally impossible for the municipalities in Frontenac to ever have the money to invest in full municipal water and sewer services. In our villages and hamlets, they are historical areas, just like I'm sure you have many of them, where we've got building lots that are very small. They've always had well and septic. There's some potential health hazards there in the future. The villages are also where in Frontenac we've spent a lot of public infrastructure investment in sidewalks, roads, lighting, parks, etc. And then it's where the majority of our commercial assessment is as well. So they're really, really crucial to our viability as a community. So communal services in Ontario, they've always, since 1976, the Ministry of the Environment has been promoting them. In the provincial policy statement, they are now seen as a second preferred form of servicing just behind full services. But there's always been a challenge of building communal services anywhere in Ontario, because in every case, the developer is required to enter into something called a municipal responsibility agreement, which makes a lot of sense because if the developer goes bankrupt or the system fails afterwards, the municipality must take the system over. And obviously there's good health and safety reasons for that to happen. However, in the case of our 4 townships, and I'm sure many other small townships across Eastern Ontario, when this proposal is brought forward to them for consideration, it may be a good idea, it may be good planning, but they usually balk at the risk of having to sign that agreement. Usually what has happened in many cases is the municipality quite rightly will say to the developer, well, if you're going to invest $750,000 or $1 million in infrastructure on communal, you need to cut us a check for exactly that same amount that we can put in a reserve fund, because if you disappear, even though these systems are of high quality, but if something goes wrong, we're on the hook. And at that point, many municipalities have just walked away from the table. So that has been the biggest stumbling block. And as I said at the bottom of the slide, essentially doubles the cost of installation. Next, please. So this statement in our Frontenac official plan was the starting point of why we started to look at communal services. Lack of municipal services in our villages challenges the future community viability. So planners like myself and Bruce, we don't just think 5 years ahead or 10 years ahead. We're obligated for the public interest to think beyond that, 25, sometimes 50 years ahead. So in my case, I was thinking, what the heck is Frontenac going to look like 100 years from now if we're still building on well and septic? Is it continually 2-acre lots, strip development? The villages get hollowed out. Not really a good situation. So we have to look at a different way of community building. Next, please. This is just a little cartoon sketch of what communal services are if you're not really familiar with them. I know you have them in Greater Madawaska at Calabogie. On the left-hand side is your traditional municipal system with a giant box representing sewage treatment plant, and you have another giant box for water treatment. And on the top of the screen, you have the private standard on-site well and septic. Communal is a smaller scale development where you have smaller wastewater treatment, smaller water treatment scaled for the amount of residential or commercial units that it needs to service. So it's very good for a rural setting where you're not expecting a subdivision to be filed for 300 or 400 residential units, and you have no anticipation of building a full system. Next, please. So some of the advantages on the environmental side, clearly instead of punching 50 holes in the ground for wells, you would just have one. You would have one wastewater treatment. So better environmental protection, especially with climate change. The systems themselves are proven from a technological point of view. There's very few malfunctions, and they are regularly maintained. Now, you're supposed to check your septic system every 5 years, your own septic system, but I don't know a lot of people who do that. So regular maintenance is guaranteed on these systems. Next, please. And then the planning side. Smaller lots, you can build on smaller lots because you don't have to build for a well and septic. So there's a better fit into the villages and hamlets within your settlement areas. More lots and more people will strengthen the local economy. It'll keep schools open and can result in walkable communities. Next, please. So just to start the story, we started this work in 2017. And at the end of this presentation, there's a link to where all of this information can be found. Basically, we started to see what can we do with communal services. Next, please. So essentially what the study did was it said the obstacles with respect to engineering, the planning, and the financial side are they're only perceived obstacles. That's all they are. And they can be overcome, and we've proven this, if you work on this kind of issue at a county-wide or regional level. Next, please. So I want to give you one example because this was important for a lot of our local decision makers to see the viability of what we're talking about. So this is a small community. It's probably a 10-minute drive north of Highway 401 as you drive into the city of Kingston. It's a small village called Inverary. And about 6 years ago, we received a draft plan of subdivision for the village. And so that area is highlighted right there. It's about just under 70 acres in total. And we asked the consultants, okay, here's what is actually we approved using standard well and septic. Can you use the same landscape and design hypothetically what could be built there if we had communal services? Next, please. So this is the brochure, and it's maybe a bit fuzzy on your screen, but this is the brochure that we produced as a result of that work. So on the left is the development that was approved by Frontenac County Council, which is 16 detached single dwellings, about 2.3 units per acre. Most of them are built out now, and they're selling for over $800,000 each, at least. On the right is a mixed-use development. So instead of 16 units, we proved that you could build 62 units. So we showed you could do mixed housing, 41 single detached, 9 townhouses, and then a 14-story apartment building, and also right at the intersection of commercial use. So this really did sort of turn the light on for our local politicians to see that, you know, we could build different communities if we looked at this form of servicing. Next, please. So I want to give you one example of one of these systems. There are numerous systems built in Canada. As part of the work I've done over the last 6 or 7 years, I've got to know some of the builders and installers of communals in Ontario. What I've realized is that there's been a major disconnect between the planning profession and the engineering profession on how these systems can lead to better communities, especially in rural communities. So this company is called New Terra. The reason we're highlighting them is they're in our backyard. They're in the city of Brockville. They have a 450,000 square foot plant. And back in May of this year, they were invited us, county council and staff, to do a site visit. And at that time, county council was able to walk inside the CCAN, and they were also able to see a number of these systems being built, being shipped to Ethiopia, to France, to South America. A number were going to the United States. New Terra has also built some up in the Arctic. I think Kelly has an example from the Alberta that he'll share. But this box they call the R108, and what that means is it's designed to service 108 residential units. Next, please. This is an example of one being installed. So they're easy to put on the back of a transport truck and drop into a community. And I think this one was built or put into a hotel development in the Muskoka area. Next, please. So I just wanted to show you this picture of where they've put these systems in across the world. If you look at the United States, they've installed over 22,000 of these boxes at different scales. Because you can have less than 100 units, you can have more than 100 units. It's all scalable. They've put 22,000 across the United States. In Ontario, they've installed less than 25. And the primary difference is because in the United States, the federal government, Housing and Urban Development, promotes these systems as viable servicing for rural communities. I've already talked to you about municipal responsibility agreement. That's been a major obstacle of getting these built in Ontario. There's the environmental approval side, which I won't talk about right now, which is also a challenge, but you can see that there's room for us to do this if we can figure out how to avoid the municipal responsibility agreement. Next, please. So very quickly, I'm going to go through 3 projects that we've been working on the past few years across Frontenac. Next. Just here's our geography. So as you know, we touch you at Greater Madawaska. In fact, getting into the northern part of North Frontenac, we have to go in on Hydro Dam Road, which is due west of Calabogie. So I think the fire and ambulance services service that part of Frontenac County. So we have the 4 townships, and I'm going to talk about one project in central Frontenac at Charlotte Lake, another project in South Frontenac, close to Kingston in the community of Verona. And then on the islands, Wolf Island, there's a little village called Marysville. Next, please. So quickly on Charlotte Lake. In 2017, the township of Central Frontenac purchased, highlighted in yellow, the former public school site. They demolished the school because it had asbestos in it. They were going to build an 8-unit seniors housing development on the property using the existing well and septic. And we provide the planning services at the township level. So they were aware that the county was working on communal services and working with the mayor, Fran Smith, and the CAO, Kathy McMunn. We got council to pause in building those 8 units on well and septic. So we would do a feasibility study of what could happen if we built on communal services, taking the water from Charlotte Lake and just putting it back in Charlotte Lake fully treated. Next, please. So the result is mixed housing up to 50 units. And as well, that box I showed you a moment ago, if they put that on that site, they could potentially hook up to other nearby uses, including their existing town hall, village community hall, where they hold their council meetings, they hold theater, dance sessions, Christmas parties, you name it. So they're looking at doing that as well. Next, please. And that's just a mock-up of potentially what could go there, up to 2-3-story mixed-use units. Next slide, please. So we've still been doing consultation. This is mid-September of this year. We had over 40 people turned out. We had over 800 surveys responded to on what do you want to see on that site. And we're going back to Township Council in December to give them the results of that. Next, please. So as I said, report to council. I'm also going to request that council start looking at doing the environmental assessment starting next year for communal. And then at the same time, they're going to have to decide on how they want to develop the site. Do they want to maintain the property and develop it on their own? Do they want to put it on or sell it to the private sector with the zoning on it, or do a partnership? Next, please. So Village of Marysville is on Wolf Island. So this is the new dock that is almost completed in the Village of Marysville. They've got a brand new, I believe it's 70-car electric ferry that is here now, but it's not quite operating. The dock is almost finished. This is a game changer for the village because every winter they haven't been able to dock right in the village. They've always had to dock out in the countryside to the east. Now the ferry will be docking every day in the village. If you live in Marysville, you'll be able to walk on the ferry, walk and get off on the other side, and either take a Kingston Transit bus to your work or walk to your job in downtown Kingston. We expect more people will want to go there. Next, please. So council agreed to do a really hard look at how the village should grow over the next 25 years, recognizing that almost the majority of the lands on the island are prime agricultural and you cannot do any residential consents. Next, please. This is just an aerial view of the village. If you look at the water and you see the dock with the 3 dots sticking out, that's where the ferry is going to dock. Right now, the population of the village is around 400 people. Next, please. So the plan, we've done the official plan amendment as a result of the secondary plan. County Council approved it about a year. We're expanding to add another 70 acres to allow another roughly 110 units over the next 20 years. And the plan says that all of these new units shall be built on communal services. We had a lot of public sessions, and at the end, I think there was pretty good community support for it. Next. And we'll just skip that slide, please. And then finally, Verona, they're looking at they did a housing master plan looking at mixed uses. Next, please. So right in the heart of the village, they'd be adding new townhouses and apartments. Next, please. This just gives you an idea of the scale of development. It wouldn't be high density. And they're also, the community is loud and clear. They want some of this housing to be for seniors so they don't have to leave their community. They can stay in their community. Next. So this is the rough proposal, the high-level proposal of how they'd redevelop. Next slide, please. And just some of the potential of having affordable or below market value housing available for the community. Next. And again, the bottom of the slide says that communal services will be required. And they've just completed their first stage of their environmental assessment, so they're moving ahead on developing, and they're looking at having a final decision early next year. Next, please. So just to summarize, communal servicing, the work we've done, it'll help the county, it'll help developers, and we did have a focus group with developers, and they said to us, listen, if you're telling us that if we put these communal services in the ground, which we will pay for, and we'll pay for all the environmental studies and traffic studies, et cetera, for the development to take place, but at the end of the day, we turn the keys over to this utility, this public utility, and we don't have to worry about it. That burden won't be on us. Then we're all in on this. We've had a lot of interest in making this happen, and at least in the southern part of Frontenac, there is a market demand for different forms of housing. And then, of course, it works for residents because it'll be better drinking water, more walkable communities, et cetera. So I'm going to stop now, and I'll let Kelly take over for his discussion.
Thanks, Joe. So the work that Joe talked about was done by WSP, and at the conclusion of that, county council and our member municipalities decided that we wanted to look at what the governance options were for the project. And just a bit of background, back in the 90s, before amalgamation, Frontenac was 23 small rural communities, townships, and we're now 4 townships. So made it a bit easier to get everybody on the same page. But the work in the governance model study was led by the 4 mayors for the 4 townships. The Municipal Service Corporation model was the preferred option. We looked at a number of different examples across Ontario of how communal services and utilities were operated across Eastern Ontario, and determined that the Municipal Service Corporation was the best model. Now, the requirements for a Municipal Service Corporation are laid out in Regulation 599 of the Municipal Act, so it's a fairly prescriptive process, and it took us about almost a year to get through the process, but last Tuesday we received our incorporation. So we are now officially incorporated, and we have our first meeting on November the 20th. So the Municipal Service Corporation was a preferred model because it allowed the corporation to be operated as a business. So it will be operated as a municipal service corporation whose aims and purpose will be to encourage communal services throughout the community. The holding company will be made up of the political representatives, while the operating company will be composed of individuals with expertise in operations. So it will be business oriented, and we will be in the business of encouraging communal services in Frontenac. The ownership will remain 100% public. So this isn't something that we would sell off. The County of Frontenac is a Class B shareholder, meaning we don't get, the county itself doesn't get votes. The townships do. And the simple logic for that was, the warden and deputy warden would essentially get extra votes if there were county votes. But we are a 20% shareholder, and we've committed between the townships and the county just under $700,000 for the first 5 years of operating expenses, which each municipality will pay 1/5 over the first 5 years. So the implementation steps, we've got through every one of these steps. We're down at the bottom. We have appointed the board of directors and officers. Part of the regulation is that you have to deal with asset transfer policy. So we'll be working through that on Monday. We did have to develop a business case, and that'll be on the Engage Frontenac page that we'll point you to at the end. So we have done most of the preliminary work, but at the end of the day, the Service Corporation Board of Directors will have to adopt an asset transfer policy as well. And, the analogy we've been using, and Joe talked about the Municipal Responsibility Agreement, the analogy that we've been using is that, this is like car insurance. If we all had to have $5 million in the bank in case we were in an accident, nobody would be operating a vehicle. But because we pool that risk and share it across, a number of different drivers, we're able to afford it. The same thing with municipal service corporations. So the first report from WSP did detailed risk analysis. And as Joe said, these things are extremely reliable these days. The technology has changed a lot over the last 15 years. In fact, the new Terra products, except for the filter media, everything within one of those boxes can be purchased at Canadian Tire or your local Home Depots. They're just basically pumps and clamps and hoses. So it's not like a large, $60 million sewage treatment plant. It's essentially off the shelf and easily repaired and replicated. One of the keys to this, and again, the importance of getting the political involvement, it was pretty clear right from the beginning that there was no interest in having the Municipal Service Corporation become involved in day-to-day aspects of planning. Where the planning decisions will still happen at South Frontenac Township Council or Central Frontenac or on the islands. The corporation is there only in the event that municipal services are provided through communal services. So it was important to our political masters that local decision-making remain local. Also, unlike a special purpose body, there's no ability for the Municipal Service Corporation to levy the municipalities. So one of the risks was, or one of the thoughts in the beginning was, we don't want to be on the hook forever. If this thing needs money in the future, it's going to have to go to the markets or go do borrowing. One of the advantages of a service corporation is that debt doesn't appear on the annual repayment limit for the municipality, so it helps with the borrowing capacity. So there's the initial 5-year commitment, but after that, the corporation will be operating as a business and be on their own. So the other question was, what will people be paying? And I live in the west end of the city of Kingston, and there's 3 of us in our household. My average utility bill is between $120 and $140 a month. My wife is a gardener, so there's a fair bit of watering in the summer. So we looked at, what would be the cost and compared that to, a traditional utility model in the city of Kingston or an urban model, and also compared it to the present value of a well and septic and how those things compare. And at the end of the day, utility bills will be in the same range as a utility bill in the city of Kingston, and would be the same as amortizing the value of a well and septic over a 25-year period. So all 4 townships have agreed. As I said, our incorporation came through last Tuesday, and we're ready to go. So some of the advantages, and I won't go through these because they're in your slide deck and I assume in your agenda package. But one of the things that we've been highlighting for the provincial and federal politicians that we've been meeting with, and we met with our MP and MPP last week and reviewed this with them. What we've done is essentially what the Housing Task Force recommended in 2022, recommendation number 44. So we are not only just following the provincial policy statements and encouraging this kind of development. This is what the Provincial Housing Task Force has said they're going to do, and the province has committed to doing that. At the end of the day, this is a private venture, although owned by the municipalities. They could pay a dividend or a community benefit. What we've said in our business case is that there wouldn't be a decision on declaring a dividend until at least after 7 years of operation. So at this point, roughly late 2030. And that would need to be supported by detailed financial analysis. Having said that, one of the models that we looked at was Lakeland Holdings in Muskoka Perry Sound area, and they currently declare annual dividends. The town of Huntsville receives about $1.2 million as a dividend. The town of Bracebridge receives almost $3 million in a dividend, and they invest that dividend into community projects to support the vitality of their communities. So with that, this is the link to our Engage Frontenac page, where you can find everything from frequently asked questions to our contact information, the business case, and the WSP, the 2 WSP reports. And I'll turn it back to the chair if there's any questions or if you'd like any follow-up.
Thank you very much for an excellent presentation. Very, very interesting. And yes, I'll open it up for questions. Councillor from Town of Petawawa.
Thank you, Chair, through you, and thanks, Joe and Kelly, for coming today. That was pretty interesting. Just a couple of questions about, I understand how the sewer services work with the CCAN there, but do you need a water source close by, like a river or a lake, in order for water services to be provided?
Yeah, so for example, Nuterra provides both ends of the pipe. So they do water from surface and water from wells, and their treatment facilities are incorporated in those boxes. So yes, they do both ends of the pipe. And at the end of the day, the outflow, and Joe showed you the Charlotte Lake, the intake would be on the western left half of that picture. The outflow would be on the right half into another bay of Charlotte Lake. And the water going back into Charlotte Lake will be cleaner than the water coming out of Charlotte Lake.
Supplementary.
So in order for this to function properly, it can't be a subdivision that is a considerable distance from a source of water, like a river or a lake, in order for the outflow to have somewhere to go?
No, actually, so one of the communities in Frontenac is called Hardington, and I'll turn it over to Joe for a bit more, but it's karst topography and very difficult for drilling wells. But there are areas in Hardington where you can get the wells, but the outflow is to essentially a wetland. Joe, did you have anything to add to that? It doesn't have to be into a water body.
No, it does. Through you, Chairman. No, it doesn't have to be in a water body. It can go. It can go into a wetlands. And the Verona example that I showed you, as part of the environmental assessment work, they're trying to decide, in terms of water, do they set up a municipal well? In other words, not tap into the nearby lake, Verona Lake. And they've done enough analysis to say yes, they can do it that way. Or do they use the lake? So that's part of the process to decide to prove the viability of a project. But you don't have to be beside a large body of water for these to happen. And the Hardington example, there's a community that isn't near a lake at all called Hardington. And we recently approved a 13-lot subdivision on about a third of the lands owned by the developer. Now, when he was preparing he was doing well testing on the site, on lands that are not part of the subdivision, he hit an aquifer, we called it a gusher, that could service over 400 residential units. So you have to have a source for water. It has to be, it has to be proven and be able to pump a lot of water out, but you don't have to be beside a water body.
Councillor from Township of McNabb-Braeside.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you, and thank you, Kelly and Joe, for this presentation. So, yes, McNabb-Braeside is interested in this communal services model that you've outlined here, just in terms of way of information. Representatives McNabb-Braeside County and some developers are going down to New Terra this Thursday just for Discovery Day to make the initial inquiries, introduce the concept to the developers and to the municipality and the county, and begin a discussion. So we're just very appreciative of this presentation, and we hope that the 7-year timeline can be truncated should this pass all the initial litmus tests for viability in the township. And certainly the groundwork that you've done will help us in that regard. There's a lot of moving parts involved with this, of course, and we really appreciate the information you've compiled here in such a way that lays it all out and gives us a bit of a roadmap to follow. And we'll again just start with as sort of a discovery day and see what happens from there. So I've got 100 questions, which I won't ask right now, but we look forward to keeping in touch. And again, thank you for making this presentation, and it's very encouraging for us. Thank you.
I just add that this is what we do in Eastern Ontario and through the Wardens Caucuses. We develop solutions and we share them with each other. So we're happy to help. And yes, our 7 years, it took 7 years, but there was also a pandemic in there and some other things that came along. But I think the work that we've done has laid the groundwork to make it easier for other municipalities as well. So, and enjoy your visit to New Terra.
Yeah, if I can just add to that through you, Chair. It took 7 years because we were breaking new ground, if I can say. There was no model that had been looked at about how do we do this together? How do we get rid of the municipal responsibility agreement? A lot of time was spent on, and a lot of, didn't get very much help from the Ministry of the Environment, if I can be honest, nor Municipal Affairs. But they appreciated where we were going, but they didn't have any solutions for us. So we were on our own, but I can guarantee you will not take 7 years. This model that we've put together, as I said at the beginning, is easily transferable, and Kelly can talk to you more about that in detail. But we've kind of cracked the code, and it is easy to apply anywhere else in Eastern Ontario. And we're pleased to talk to you about this because as a planner, I'm very optimistic about how this can help build communities.
Thank you. I just had one question. You spoke a lot about the water side of it. What about the sewage solid part of it? Once it's treated, where do the solids end up, and how are they handled?
So the people at Newterra were very helpful in that regard, and that was one of the questions, obviously, that our politicians had as well. So depending on the size of your unit and the number of homes connected, it's a once a month process to take away the dry residue, and it can be landfilled at that site at that point.
Can it also be applied if you have farmers in the area? Can it be applied on fields, or is it fairly strictly regulated through Ministry of Environment?
I would imagine that would be part of your compliance agreement with MOE, whether it could or it couldn't. But essentially, it can be used for cover to landfill. Probably can be used on an agricultural use as well. But it would probably be part of your compliance agreement with MOE.
Thank you, and I'm going to turn to Bruce Howarth, our planner, because interested to see whether he has any questions.
Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you very much for the presentation. And yeah, Joe and I have had many conversations over this topic over the last few years. So I always appreciate your insight and knowledge, Joe, and sharing that with us. So thank you very much. I was wondering if you could just very quickly touch on, after a system is installed, who is operating the system for the long term? Do you have, or does the municipal corporate service, do they have their own staff, or do you contract that out to like a group like Aqua?
Yeah, that'll be a part of our discussion on Monday with the new board and with our technical advisory committee. We envision that at least for the first number of years that this will be a contracted service. So, for example, the water service in the little village of Sydenham, just north of Kingston, is owned by the township of South Frontenac, but managed by Kingston Utilities. So in our area, we've got Utilities Kingston, we've got Aqua, we've got the town of Perth Public Works, for example, that could be operators. Eventually, we may grow into having our own staff, but we see this as probably being a contracted service, at least from the start. And there are a number of different private operators as well, like Clairford and Ottawa.
Thank you. And the warden had a question as well.
Thank you very much for the presentation today. I've been following it for a couple of years, just initially heard about it, and then there's been some more intense interest in getting information, so thank you for this. And Joe, I was part of Greater Madawaska when it was Beggett, Blythefield, and Brome with the peaks in the late 80s and early 90s and late 90s, and then Calabogie Lodge as well. So I fully recall those discussions and the acrimony it caused because of the expense of owning the system. So I'm really glad to see this, that you've evolved the system so that it's a package that rural municipalities can go forward with. One of the questions I have is that I note your townships are voting on this. So if a township doesn't buy in on the ground floor, does that negate the whole model, or they're just not a member of the corporation?
They just wouldn't be a member of the corporation at that point, Warden. So all four have voted to be in, so we weren't in that situation. But there was discussion back before the last election. What if one doesn't join after the election? How would that work? Would it just be 3 of 4 or 2 of 4? But they all voted to come into the corporation. Okay,
thank you. And the model you mentioned where they return dividends in another, I think it was Blue Mountain or Collingwood, I can't remember exactly where it is, but is it, do they charge like a monthly fee for the use of the service? Is that how they return dividends?
Well, That's Lakeland Holdings, and it's Muskoka Perry Sound area. So they do everything from hydro services to GIS services. So their corporation is now some 25 years old, and they offer a wide range of services to their community, operating on a municipal service corporation kind of model. So it's a bit different, but it was interesting to look at what this could be in a mature state. The other one that we looked at was Oro Medonte near Barrie. Robin Dunn, the CAO of Oro Medonte, was going through the same work. And in fact, I was with Robin last week in Sault Ste. Marie. They're having their inaugural meeting this week, and I was a little bit mad that he was having his inaugural meeting the week before we were having ours, but life is like that. And so there are others popping up based upon the same work. Oro Medonte will be looking at water, sewer, and they've also thrown their street lighting into that as well.
Thank you very much for sharing, and congratulations. Really envious of the leadership role that you've taken on this and the willingness to share. Thank you.
The only thing I'd add, Mr. Chair, was just back in terms of the staffing. These units aren't staffed on a day-to-day basis. They're all monitored by SCADA, so remotely. And Nutera reports that, depending on the type of system, they might have a 1-hour visit once a week to once a month, depending on the volumes.
Thank you for all those details. And, sorry, Mr. Kelly, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Through you. Joe and Kelly, I know you're just starting out. If I look at Greater Madawaska, which touches Frontenac, and if they had a subdivision near your borders, would you, in the future tense, consider expanding your boundaries of your municipal corporation, or are you sticking within the county of Frontenac?
So good question, Craig. And in fact, we've had meetings with neighboring municipalities. The mayors have decided that, at least in the short term, to stick with Frontenac. Let's get the model up and running. They do need to be contiguous. If I squint my eyes and look at, what does this service look like 10, 15 years from now, I think the potential is to make it regional and to operate in a manner where, it might be, for example, in our area, Lennox and Addington plus Leeds and Grenville, maybe throw in a Lanark, and there's a regional utility. Having said that, the service corporation, the municipalities need to be contiguous. So we couldn't leap over a municipality, but we could incorporate a municipality that was on the boundaries of Frontenac. So growing the corporation will be interesting. Lakeland Holdings went through a process 7 or 8 years ago in bringing in Perry Sound into their municipal service corporation. So the process is fairly detailed, and it's part of that asset management planning that I talked about in our business case.
Appreciate it. Thanks, folks.
And I have a question from Councillor from Town of Petawawa.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, just to follow up on the whole municipal services corporation model, I understand why it's necessary. It does seem a bit cumbersome and complicated. If this was just a single municipality who wanted to do this in 1 or 2 subdivisions within a municipality, would the services corporation be necessary, or could it just be operated under the municipality itself?
It could. What I'd suggest is that you need to have the potential to grow the corporation, because it's safety in numbers, like insurance. So in our situation, looking at South Frontenac, which is the northern border of the city of Kingston, there's definitely the potential. In fact, we're working through a planning application for a subdivision that would probably support it all on its own. So you need to have that ability to grow the system and have a number of different systems installed. The other advantage of the municipal service corporation is the ability to borrow so that it doesn't end up on your annual repayment limit. So it is a separate corporation. It is audited separately and doesn't roll up to your municipal corporation. So if there are concerns with respect to your repayment limit, then a service corporation helps with that.
Are there any other questions? Excuse me. Seeing none, thank you very much, Joe and Kelly, and I'm sure there'll be a contingent of interested people attending the presentation of Venterra. So again, looking forward to further information for anybody who might be looking at doing something like this moving forward. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Very well.
So we'll now move forward in the rest of our development and property report, and I will turn it over to Director Davis.
Thanks again, Chair, and again, thank you to Joe and Kelly for that presentation. And I believe what I said before, this is it's a game changer for our rural municipalities for any development moving forward. So of interest, we do have staff going to this presentation. I do believe Mr. Howarth will be going down to that presentation. Again, thank you to Councillor McKenzie for highlighting that to us. Before I go dive into my report, what you see in front of me here, we have another staff member here. Dennis Lazary is here, acting in behalf of the manager of real estate, to Kevin Raditz. Kevin is away for a Renfrew County thing. I'm not sure what that would be, but maybe hunting. And Lacey Rose could not make it today either. She's at a mechanical site preparation at the Beachburg track, which started today and needed her attention. So be cognizant of the fact. So starting on page 9 of your committee package, first item for information under the Treasurer's Report on pages 13 to 17 is the statements ending in September. And so of interest, if you want to draw, or I could draw your attention to page 17 of your committee package. Overall for our department, we have some savings of around $500,000. Again, this is we're not finalized. There's a number of invoices coming forward. I'll draw your attention to a number of them. You'll see in that page 17 of your committee package, 17 of your committee package, is some of the revenues from the planning services division. So the severances numbers are going up. We'll still need to tease out through the reporting mechanism, working with Daniel Burke in Finance, working with the general inquiries. Right now, the general inquiries, we do have a fee now. And so we're going to tease that out in the near future to kind of differentiate between actually severances and general inquiries. I know Mr. Burke's laughing at me right now, but we'll work through that process to highlight what and where things are going. Also, in the planning section on page 16, you'll see the salaries are under budget just due to the fact we still have a lack of a planner. You'll see throughout the report, we are striving to fill that position. It's been a challenge not only for us, but local municipalities when they're looking for their planning services. So you'll see that as a savings, but we do need and do want to fill this position because as you see in Bruce's report, he's having stressors for a number of his files moving forward. Also under the forestry section, you'll see our revenues to date are close to $300,000, and in Lacey's report, you'll see a little higher. So again, it's an anomaly. We always try to budget for $180,000 for forestry revenues, but as markets apply and the way we tender things, it kind of fluctuates between $180,000 to $200,000. In some years we go less, but when you look at the average of our forestry revenues, it is around $180,000, actually closer to $200,000, but we'll move things forward. So maybe, Chair, instead of going through the report, do you want me to stop at that section in case there's any questions regarding the budgets?
Good idea. So yes, any questions on the finances as presented? Councillor from Township of McNabb-Braeside.
Thank you. Just lost my notes here, but my question was about salaries. You mentioned the planning under budget. There's a few other divisions which are significantly below budget on salary to this point. For example, forestry, 40,000. Again, I lost my notes, but I had this property, Renfrew County Place, GIS is under budget by $54,000 in salaries at this point. economic development, 20,000, that sort of thing. I'm just curious if that's going to hold in general to the end of this year, or is there other situations like the planning department where we're just understaffed, so which is problematic in other areas, but on the surface is a reduced expense, but I'm just asking in preparation for 2024 and having a full complement of staff is an important way that we deliver services. So I'm just wondering if there's issues in other departments as well.
Through you, Chair. So you mentioned a number of items under forestry and GIS, and committee, you may recall we did go through a business case to do a minor restructuring within the D&P by moving trails out, hiring additional GIS technician, hiring a full-time forestry technician also, and those reductions in salaries you see in the report, it took us a while. When we budgeted for it, for a full year. That final budget was never approved until, I think, end of February. And by the time we actually did the job postings and hired the people, that's where you see those savings moving forward. So looking at 2024, those numbers will actually match out what we budgeted for. Hopefully that answers your question, Chair.
Are there any other questions? I just had one regarding Renfrew County Place with the recent move of the Renfrew County District Health Unit, and I believe Enterprise Renfrew County vacating some of the space. Any luck filling some of those vacant spaces?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So right now we're working with our paramedic program team. We're looking to house, and we're doing minor renovations as we speak, to the old health unit space for Renfrew County VTAC. So we'll be looking at that space be utilized by EMS, paramedic service, and by that time it'll be completed in about 2 weeks or 3 weeks, or the end of the month. But then we still have one spot left that'll be vacant, the old CFDC spot. And if we don't have anyone, we'll do a full court press on trying to really put it out in the media where we have a vacant space available. So one space is confirmed, the one space is not. So sort of a good news, bad news story. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, then I'll turn back to you, Mr. Davis, for the remainder of your report.
Thank you, Chair. So item number 2 on page 9 again is just the sale gap update on page 18, and you'll see some good news a little bit. We're moving forward with 3 new co-locations of cell towers moving forward, so slow but sure, slow but steady pace is going forward. Item number 3, the Eganville Community Expansion Project for Natural Gas, and attached as Appendix Forestry, attached as Appendix 3 on pages 19 to 21 is the proposed location of a gas line going from the main line outside of Cobden through Osceola into Eganville on a different location than was originally proposed. But what you see in your committee package is the proposed location moving forward. So if you want to have any comments, you can apply for intervenor status by November 16th. Item number 4 is an interesting item to do with moving things forward in the housing kind of spectrum, what we're looking for. We've talked here in D&P and different other committees at County Council. We do have pressures looking for different housing initiatives. We've talked about Habitat for Humanity. We've talked about Keys Public School moving forward and things like that. Staff have got together at the senior leadership team and now at the lower levels of ourselves, looking at what we can do to be ready, be prepared for funding announcements, both federally and provincially. We do know funding announcements are coming forward, so to be prepared, what we're looking for is looking to engage in a service to highlight 5 properties within Renfrew County on Renfrew County lands and make them basically shovel-ready projects. What you have in your committee package on page 20 is the process is what we're looking for. Again, this is just an item as information. We're not looking for a recommendation. And what you'll see in our 2024 budget review, a line item of enhancements of $150,000 if there's an interest in this committee and County Council to move this along to be shovel ready. One of the criteria on these funding announcements is to have projects ready to go. And so we think this is a good initiative, a good way to move forward, and then everything's ready and in place. And I'll leave it at that before I go to resolutions.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. So we'll go back to information item number 2, the Cell Gap project update. Comments, questions? Seeing none, then the Eganville Community Expansion Project. And item number 4 is the request for proposal for engineering services for housing solutions. Seeing no questions, back to you, Director Davis, for the resolution.
If I may, Chair, so for previous discussions, I'm going to pass it off to our CAO to talk about the resolution before I read the recommendation. Chair.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Kelly.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to committee. Good morning. So a bit of a departure from what we've done. I guess this is only your second time through a budget process as this term of council. But what we thought we'd do is change the script a little bit this year, and was going to, and we're bringing forward to all committees a bit of a business plan, or bit of a business report, or a bit of a report that will eventually feed into your report card on the strategic plan, and also feed into the budget workshops in January. So what I've asked the directors to do at all their individual committees is to put together a compendium, as mentioned here, that goes through what we've accomplished so far in 2023 and what the plans are for 2024 and how they fit with activities throughout the corporation. And I note Mr. Davis' report, Mr. Davis notes in his report that this is an important step between staff and the elected. These two branches of government, of course, we meet only a couple times a month. But at this stage, it would be helpful to know from you, in terms of an interactive session, if we're on the right page, on the right trail, on the right track, or if we're totally off base, and should we be concentrating our efforts and otherwise. Because Mr. Davis and his crew of managers are working through the budget right now. I have not seen their draft yet, but of course they are met with challenges, but they are interested in hearing your thoughts on activities as we move forward into 2024 to make sure we're, again, on the same page. So with that preface, I'll turn it back to the director for the recommendation.
Yeah, and thank you, Chair, and thank you, CAO. So for me, it's a good opportunity to hear from the elected, from you and County Council, to see if we're on the right track moving forward for 2024. So I'll read the recommendation, Chair, that the Development and Property Committee directs staff to bring the business plan for all relevant divisions under the purview of Development and Property Committee to the 2024 budget workshop and planning meetings, including any suggested revisions or conceptual projects or areas of concentration.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. You've heard the recommendation. Could I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor from Township of Horton, seconded by Councillor from Town of Arm Prior. And background, please, Mr. Davis.
Thank you again. So on pages 20, I do believe, 22 to 27 is that business plan. And I'm not going to go through every individual accomplishment in 2023. There's a number of items, just to highlight a few of them for sure. And then moving forward, again, I won't mention all the 2024 ideas, projects, the concepts, but hopefully you had enough time over the weekend to review them and to see if we have any feedback from you, to see if you want to expand on any or maybe make some modifications. So in 2023, just quickly going through the different divisions under planning, the biggest, kind of the two different ones I'd like to mention are the initiation of the flood mapping and modeling projects for Renfrew County and some of the local municipalities. We've initiated through Bruce Howarth the Climate Action Plan, and you'll see more of that in 2024. Again, our stressors for the planning division is staffing. I can't reiterate that again, but I will, because we do have that stressors. And so keep that in mind when Bruce does his report later on. Under forestry, again, with the minor restructuring, we hired a new forest technician. really engaged in our forest revenues this year. So what you see there, well over $300,000 in revenues in 2023. We haven't finalized the whole projects yet, but it's a good news story that way. But again, the cautionary note and to manage expectations, this won't happen every year. Again, some years we may actually be below the $180,000, but when we have good news, we like the good news. Again, a reminder, and without going into any open or closed items, we're still supporting the land claim as they move forward in the province and the Algonquins moving forward. Under the real estate division, again, not to belabor this, but again, we're still building upon and trying to finalize the Lee and Douglas build. The roof is on. Hopefully you have a chance to go down in the city of Pembroke at the Lee and Douglas to see the development moving along. We have the expectation to have this finalized and hopefully a grand opening in March of 2024. Also, we've started the new duplex on 202 Cecil. Just to name a few things that we're moving with real estate. As mentioned before at County Council, our portfolio is large. Our staffing, we're doing mighty things with a number of staffing issues that we have. Moving along to economic development, launched the new Invest Renfrew County website, launched the strategic planning exercise, again to be completed next year, and hopefully you receive some emails and correspondence to hopefully you can get some input from you or your staff that want to participate in this exercise. For the Ottawa Valley Tourist Association, launched the new tourism website. The 5-year partnership, it's always a good news story through OVTA, County of Renfrew, and the Pembroke. And also, we're going to host the first annual general meeting of the tourist conference since 2019 here this past year. And Enterprise Renfrew County developed the Francophone service programs, delivered Starter Company Plus and Summer Company programs, etc., as we move forward. So just not all the accomplishments in 2023, just to highlight a number of them moving forward. Again, moving forward to 2024, our issues are going to be our budgets. Our first draft, which Craig has not seen yet, is a challenging to say the least. Staffing is one of the biggest issues we have. For planning, though, we still want to make sure to finalize the flood mapping, the climate action plan, and something new you'll recall in one of our previous meetings, still trying to acquire the air photography for Renfrew County. It's still a good news story. We partnered with the province of Ontario, DRAPE, if you recall that acronym, DRAPE 4. So they'll be taking that project on moving forward. And also the challenges we'll be facing, and you'll see this during the budget review, is our website, our GIS web application. The County of Renfrew has a GIS web application that was available to the municipalities and the public since 2003. Just dealing with the software updates and concerns, there's a budget pressure for that, and we'll be reviewing what we can do to minimize the budget, but to also allow the municipalities and the public to have access, hopefully, moving forward. Again, you'll notice throughout Bruce's reports throughout the years, the province is never changing policy direction, and so hopefully it'll stabilize a little bit, but we do know that provincial policy statement is going to be changing yet again, and that will make changes for Bruce's team to react to those changes from the province. Under forestry, one of their biggest regeneration efforts, again starting today and will continue on in 2024, is the regeneration efforts at the Beachburg Tract moving forward. A large expense, a large time commitment from staff, both mechanically and chemically, to move this forward, to replant this area after we harvest it, and that's our typical process. Real estate, again, talking about the Lee and Douglas build, we want to complete that by March, the 202 Cecil, and also we can't forget our newly purchased paramedic station in the village of Eganville. We'll be starting the renovations hopefully within the week or two to start the process, but it'll still take a number of months throughout 2024 to finalize the renovations, to have them moved in and moved out of the Bonnechere Valley's Fire Hall. For economic development, the first priority is to complete the strategic plan and then to execute the year one action items moving forward. Again, I hopefully you can provide comments from either you or your staff. Also, we'll host the Municipal Agricultural Economic Development and Planning Forum. You recall from our last committee session, staff was at the previous one, and we look forward to hosting this in 2024. Ottawa Valley's Tourist Association. They're launching a destination management planning exercise to make sure we have a clearer strategy for managing and promoting our destinations. Still promoting and executing our tourism strategy with year 2 action items. And finally, the sustainable tourism designation for Renfrew County in 2024. And I do believe finally for Enterprise Renfrew County, again, the core business that we deliver for Enterprise Renfrew County Starter Company Plus and Summer Company programs moving forward. So maybe, Chair, I didn't go through them all, to say the least, but there's a number of items you can kind of digest and provide comments back.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. So I'll call for questions. The warden, please.
Thank you. Not just a couple of small questions, but just an overriding statement, first of all. Secondly, I think we can't measure what we don't know. And so I've always liked this idea of a business plan going forward. So I like the fact that there's a summation of what occurred last year so we can measure that. And then I like I really like the idea of the, as it's called, considerations and opportunities. I think that's a nice way of having a roadmap, and again, that allows an ability to measure. And if something doesn't get done, then you ask a question, why? And if it comes down to resources or lack of partners or something to do with the province or the federal government, then those are things that we can act on. So I think what it does too is it takes out the unpredictability for staff and for committee of things arising, because this is a pretty all-encompassing roadmap going forward. And I would suggest just a couple of things. One is we need to have a discussion somewhere, whether it's with finance or with this committee, about municipal service corporations, because they've come up across our housing portfolio as we move forward, what we heard this morning, and there might be other opportunities. So at some point, we have to have that attached to somebody's work planning, so that it lands probably in the middle of 2024, because I think it's going to become critical. And then also, I would suggest this presentation on communal systems. It should be in here somewhere where we're keeping an eye on it, because it may end up being a function of a County of Renfrew Municipal Service Corporation. Given the number of small municipalities, it may end up residing here for a fee, and because, as Mr. Pender noted spreading the risk out with a larger body. So those are the only two comments I would make on it. But congratulations, I think this is great, and I'd love to see it and have wanted to see it for a while.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? I just had one, and in regards to planning, and I know the ongoing challenge we have trying to find planner, and you talk about a municipal services corporation, I think again that might be an opportunity to better utilize some of the planners, some of the municipalities that have their own planners. I'm not sure what their workload is like, but certainly might be worth exploring that possibility of a relationship, even in the short term, as we're seeing the numbers of general inquiries again falling behind our projected timelines, and knowing that those fees or those fines are now applicable if things don't move in a timely fashion. So something that I think would be worth exploring as well moving forward. Any other comments, questions? I see none, so then we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And that's carried. And that brings us to Ms. Markwood and the Economic Development Division report.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everyone. Number one on the ECDev report is the strategic planning exercise. As Jason mentioned, we've sent out a couple of opportunities to become involved and engaged on this. So one is the survey that launched on October 19th, and that remains open for another couple of weeks. So if you have not had the time to respond to that, please do so. There are 7 short questions that has you thinking about the future economic prosperity of Renfrew County, as well as some detailed questions about the Community Futures Development Corporation. to which I can remind that we're doing this exercise in partnership with them. We're doing some targeted info sessions on November 23rd here at the county building. And again, that was sent out to all of you as an opportunity, so thank you to some of you who have responded. And then we'll have the first staff working session on December 14th in preparation for the final plan to be presented to committee in February. Number two, just a couple of funding announcements that have come out recently. One is the electric vehicle charge-on program, so that's open to municipalities as well as businesses and Indigenous communities. The application deadline is January 31st, 2024. And then just under continued funding under the Sustainable Canadian Agricultural Partnership Grant is the positioning fruit farming sector for growth. So this is an application for agricultural producers in the fruit farming sector. And that application closes on December 31st, 2026, or when the funds are all expended. And AgriCorp will be the third-party delivery organization for that application, which opens up on November 20th. Number three is the Funders Forum. So on November 30th in Horton Township at the Community Center, we're working with the Community Futures Development Corporation to host a Funders Forum. So this is an opportunity for businesses to learn about various funding opportunities from provincial, federal, and local funding organizations. So will be included there is the Province of Ontario, Fed of Ontario, the Ontario Trillium Foundation, United Way, and the Renfrew County CFDC. This is a free event from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Anyone who's interested in attending is asked to register in advance. The morning session will provide updates on the various funding organizations, and then in the afternoon is actually an opportunity for businesses to book one-on-one appointments with the funders to learn more about how they can submit an application, tips on submitting a positive application, and things like that. Number four, Taste of the Valley. So the final regular Taste of the Valley event was held on October 14th in Cobden that welcomed over 5,000 visitors. We had a completely sold out event with 135 vendors, and I just want to give a shout out to the Township of Whitewater region for hosting, and particularly Mayor Nicholson, who was out parking cars in the parking lot for the first little bit to give us a hand. So that was the October event is always our big kind of last hurrah for the fall harvest, the most popular event. But we do have the last one happening on December 16th, which is the holiday edition, and that will be here in Pembroke at the Germania Club. Number five, this is just to announce that the shared position for a settlement and recruitment officer with Lanark County has been filled. So Linda Alexander began her role on October 10th, and she will be working with both Lanark County and Renfrew County to deliver on our workforce attraction and settlement projects that we have ongoing, which go until March of 2026. And lastly, item number 6 is the second issue of the Renfrew County Business Newsletter was released on November 8th. You all should have received a copy in your inbox, and you can read that at your leisure. And that completes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Marquardt. So we'll go back to information item number 1, the Economic Development Strategic Planning Exercise. Comments, questions? Warden, please.
Thank you. The Chair and I were involved in a joint session one day last week. I can't remember what day. It was an hour. It went really fast. Great questions and great back and forth. So the questions are meant as a structure and not as a cast in cement routine. So we had it was nice. It was fast. The hour went really quick. So if you have the opportunity, I would hope you would take advantage of it. The sessions are well worth it.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, then we'll move to item number 2, the funding announcements. Item number 3 is the Funders Forum. Warden?
In the next couple of days, I have an email from United Way which shows all of the programs they funded in 2023, and there are, I think, 6 in the county in our geographic county. So I will send that out to you and your CAOs as a means of just prepping you for this meeting, because there are funds that can be utilized by municipalities or community groups for services in our community. And the deadline, I believe, for the United Way is some point in January, but I'll forward that email with the chart hopefully by Monday of next week, sorry. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, this Funders Forum, a great initiative again on Renfrew County's behalf. And I'm just curious, the entrepreneurs that the county works with, does this information automatically go to them as well?
Yes, this is advertised across all of our social media channels, as well as our municipal partners have been sharing it. It was in our newsletter, as well as our community support organizations are also sharing it.
Thank you. Any other questions? So we'll move to item number 4, Taste of the Valley. Item number 5 is the Settlement and Recruitment Officer for Lanark and Renfrew counties. Councillor from town of Petawawa.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to Melissa. Could you just give a little more detail on, I guess, the role of the Settlement and Recruitment Officer? Thanks.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. So this kind of started as it's kind of a two-point process. So the County of Renfrew did an application 2 years ago now to RED for our workforce attraction project, which was approved and is ongoing right now. And then the County of Renfrew in 2023, or late 2024, or 2022, sorry, put in an application to the RED program this year for them to do a similar project, which would bring Lanark County basically up to speed and in line with where we are going with our workforce attraction project. And one of the missing pieces of what was identified through Lanark's application was the need for this position for a settlement and recruitment officer. So this is one that the County of Renfrew came in on partner with Lanark County for this shared position that will help to execute the action items and timelines that are being developed through our project as well as through Lanark County's project. So it was identified as kind of a shared services to be able to reduce some spending but provide equivalent services to both of our communities through that project.
Thank you. Any other? Oh, Warden.
Thank you. And I think if I recall, part of it was that this would allow a template to be developed for the smaller municipalities. They wouldn't have to go out, so that they could participate in trying to attract people to move to their communities. So it's looking at what I call small I immigration from within Ontario, but also large I immigration from the international community as well. So there's the template, because the worry that's been expressed by some, yeah, we really want to do this, but we don't have the expertise. We don't think we can afford to bring in the expertise to develop a program or a model, and it also sits on the corner of somebody's desk, and sometimes it gets pushed off because there's only room for 10 spots on a CAO or a clerk's desk. And so this was hopefully going to allow the smaller local municipalities to feel they had a strategy going forward. So that was part of it. And really glad to see this. This has been something we've been sort of talking about for a couple of years. And I think when you think back to Ms. Buckholt's presentation 2 sessions ago, two county council meetings ago, where she talked about immigration and attraction, I think this dovetails nicely with that. So thank you very much for pursuing it and getting it in place.
Thank you for that. Any other comments? Seeing none, item number 6 is the Invest Renfrew County newsletter. Very good read for those who may not have gone through it yet, and nice to see some of the Renfrew County successes highlighted. So with that, then we'll move on to the Ottawa Valley Tourist Association report, and back to Ms. Markwood.
Thank you, Chair. So number 1 up on the list is the recent election of the Ontario's Highlands Tourism Organization Board of Directors. So the annual general meeting was held on October 17th virtually. And as you'll see from the report, the list of the 2023-2024 Board of Directors, which is quite heavily weighted on the Ottawa Valley side, with 5 or 6 operators, including yours truly, sitting on that Board of Directors. And I just want to note, this is a really great board to sit on. We have a really, really great group of directors from around not only the Ottawa Valley, but all of the Ontario's Highlands region that provides a lot of great collaboration amongst our tourism partners. So really great to be reelected again for another term. Number 2, again, this is Ontario's Highlands Tourism Organization opportunity, but one that is being promoted through the OVTA. So the Ontario's Highlands Tourism Organization is working with the tourism technology company to bring an online booking platform to the region for the booking of visitor services. So think of accommodations, attractions, and things like that. It's a new platform that has significantly reduced rates for operators to become involved, and so there's a pilot project that will include up to 30 tourism operators who currently do not have an online booking presence. So thinking about maybe some of those smaller accommodations or tourist service attraction operators who don't necessarily have the funds to invest in an online booking platform, this provides a really, really affordable opportunity for those operators who want to pursue that and have more of an online presence. So there's an information session being held on November 21st where operators can sign up to learn more. And this really is a booking platform that will be hosted on the Ontario's Highlands consumer website at comewander.ca. It will also be linked through the OVTA's website and just helps to solidify that path to purchase process through the tourism cycle. Number 3 is just another familiarization tour that we hosted through our travel trade partnership, which was on October 5th, and that was the hosting of Canadian Fair, and that's the UK's largest tour operator, actually, and we've been pursuing them and hoping to get them to the region for a very long time now, so this is a really big win for us. And, huge thanks to Ontario's Highlands Tourism Organization and Destination Ontario, because this happened under the bill of Destination Ontario. So we're really happy to have the group here, and they visited the Madawaska Canoe Centre and Spectacle Lake Lodge. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Market. So we'll go back to information item number 1, the Ontario Highlands Tourism Organization new Board of Directors. Item number 2 is the new online booking platform for tourist operators. Another great initiative. And item number 3 is the travel trade familiarization tour. I'm seeing no questions or comments, so back to you, Ms. Margaret, for the Enterprise Renfrew County report.
Thank you again, Chair. So number 1 is the midterm report for Enterprise Renfrew County's consultation and outreach efforts. So in the first column is the year-to-date, bringing us from April 1st to September 30th, 2023. And in the second column is the annual target. So as you can see, figures and numbers are on track or already exceeding some of those targets. Just pointing out that under the Summer Company Plus program, so the fall session is currently happening right now, with the first round of pitches actually happening right at this moment. So those numbers, in terms of the number of grants issued, will be increasing by the end of next week, actually. And then the Summer Company program is only done once annually, and we achieved all targets on that program. Under number 2 is just an update. So in October, we held the Small Business Week activities. So those were a variety of in-person and virtual training events, with 58 people attending in-person workshops and 49 attending some of the virtual workshops. Big thanks to our partners at FedDev, as well as Renfrew County Community Futures Development Corporation, and our municipal partners, including Pembroke, Petawawa, Arnprior, Laurentian Valley, McNabb, Braeside, and Greater Madawaska for hosting and helping to make all of those events a success. On December 5th, ERC is hosting a webinar called Chat GPT, Your Business's Secret Weapon. So this is focusing on artificial intelligence and using AI in the workplace. And there's already really great attendance for this one, just showing the demand and the need and the use of AI in our everyday world, And then on November 4th, ERC attended the first Indigenous Business Expo hosted in Pembroke, which was very well attended and a really great opportunity for Enterprise Renfrew County to showcase their services and support specifically for the local Indigenous community. And shall I pause there before going to the bylaw?
Yes, and we'll go back to information item number 1, the core business consultations and services report. Item number 2, the workshops, events, and community outreach. I just had a question on the AI presentation. Is this AI to do like accounting or booking, or does it involve a whole range of activity that it can track or help with?
Thank you, Chair, and through you. Yeah, it's a general overview on how EI can be used for various aspects of your business. So it won't go into a high-level detail into those specific opportunities, but we'll just talk about in general the use and benefits and the items that you need to take into consideration for using AI in your business.
Thank you for that. Any other comments, questions? I'm seeing none, so back to you, Ms. Markwood, for bylaws.
Thank you, Chair. So I will read the recommendation that the Development and Property Committee recommends that County Council adopt a bylaw to enter into an agreement with the Corporation of the Town of Renfrew for office space for Enterprise Renfrew County commencing January 1st, 2024 for a 5-year period.
Thank you. You've heard the recommendation. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor from Greater Madawaska, seconded by Councillor from Laurentian Valley. Please go ahead with the background.
Thank you. Some of you may be aware the Town of Renfrew has created the Ottawa Valley Business Hive within Town Hall, so that's on Raglan Street in downtown Renfrew. And the Ottawa Valley Business Hive is a shared office space housing a number of community organizations, including Renfrew County Community Futures Development Corporation, the Renfrew and Area Chamber of Commerce, Renfrew BIA. And so the town has graciously offered some space to Enterprise Renfrew County to bring ERC into that hive, which would provide some synergies in terms of collaboration of those service support organizations as it relates to economic development. And so this agreement would be for a 5-year term, beginning on January 1st, 2024, ending on December 31st, 2028, with the option to do another 5-year agreement at the end of that term. And the rate would be for $1 per year. And I will end it at that.
Thank you, Ms. Markwood. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that's carried. And before we move on to the forestry report, I think we will take a 10-minute break, and we'll be back here at 11:10. Thank you, and welcome back, everybody. And we will move forward with our forestry report. And Mr. Howarth, please.
Thank you, Chair. The forestry report can be found on page 52 of your package. It was prepared by the County Forester, Lacey Rose. There's 3 information items. The first one is an update with regards to the 2023 harvest operations. As you can see from the numbers, most of the projects that have been completed to date have actually come above bid price, so that's positive news for Renfrew County. And there's still one tract that's out that we're still waiting to be invoiced, which is the Round Lake East project. Item number 2 is an ongoing project with regards to wells. These are usually abandoned wells that are found on county forest tracts that would have been previously associated with homesteads. And this is an ongoing project that as we discover the wells, or if there's issues, then we fill them in accordance with provincial requirements. And the last one is comments submitted for the black ash tree. I believe it was at the October meeting of Development Property. There was a resolution that the committee be directed to submit supportive comments to the EBR with regards to the proposed the Endangered Species Act changes with regards to protecting black ash, and that submission is attached to the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Howarth. So we'll go back to information item number 1, the 2023 harvest operations update. Questions, comments? Item number 2 is the well filled at the Petsnick Lake tract. And finally, item number 3 is the black ash comments that were submitted by Ms. Rose. And with that, then we will move on to the real estate division report. And Mr. Lazaרי.
Thank you, Chair, and to through you, committee. Just 3 information points today. We have the update to the capital and under threshold projects. As information number 1. In it, just 2 minor changes. The HVAC replacement of the upgrades for Renfrew County Place. Work is to commence mid-November. We're still weather and material dependent. That may become a carryover into 2024. And the parking lot paving at Renfrew County Place scheduled for the week of November 20th. That is happening starting today. Information item number 2, 1030 Lee Street, new build progress report. Progress continues on the multi-unit affordable housing complex at the corner of Lee and Douglas. The framing phase is now officially complete and the asphalt shingles on the roof have been installed. The contractor is currently focused on the interior work, particularly the electrical and the HVAC systems within. Paving has been temporarily delayed due to the unforeseen weather. Authorized changes to date totals $199,663 with a revised construction value of $3.314 million. Cost savings change order is still forthcoming with an approximated estimated value of $30,000 to $40,000. And we will be reviewing and applying for the recently announced HST GST savings for new affordable housing to help further save costs. Information number 3, request for proposal building condition assessment with the Renfrew County Housing Corporation. Real Estate Division recently issued a request for proposal to hire a consulting firm to perform the BCAs. The deadline for proposals was 2 p.m. on Thursday, October 25th. The last building assessments were completed in 2017. And the proposal submissions allow the county staff the ability to evaluate each proponent and assess their relative quality solely on the factors and sub-factors in the solicitation. 12 companies applied, submitted proposals to complete the project. And in accordance with the Renfrew County Housing Corporation's policy RCHC 02 for the procurement of goods and services, competitive tenders with results greater than $100,000 require approval from the RCHC committee. Staff recommend that the request for proposal from Roth Eames Limited, Oakville, Ontario, in the amount of $183,840 be awarded. This allocation will allow for the contingency funds in the case of any unknown factors or change orders. And completion of the building condition assessments reflects an action item for goal number 5 of the 2023 to 2026 strategic plan, attainable housing and infrastructure. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lazari. So we'll go back to information item number 1, the real estate 2023 capital and capital under threshold projects. Comments or questions? Seeing none, item number 2 is the Lee Street new build progress report. I just had one question. The almost $200,000 overage. Do you have any additional information on what was the main cause of that?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Chair, and through to committee. Yes, the main overage was material soils subgrade was we had to do some additional removals and replacement. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments? And item number 3 is the request for proposal for the building condition assessment. Comments, questions? Yes, Councillor from Laurentian Valley and then Town of Arnprior.
Just curious if this tendered amount was close to what we had expected or not?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, our initial budget was $200,000.
Councillor from Arnprior.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just curious with the board that made the decision with the percentages. There's like almost a 15 or 20% difference between the high and low, and the monies are obviously different as well. I'm just curious. There must be a report card that you get assessed at, and I don't understand why there's a 20% difference in the way of the different percentage that you've issued to the different companies. If that makes sense to you?
Mr. Lazari?
We do a evaluation for each proposal. It's a 4-person team committee, so you're averaging everyone's points. One member might rate harder than another, and then we average out the 4 participants in the committee, and these are the points we receive. Yeah, I don't know if that clarifies.
Supplementary?
Yes, I guess what I'm trying to get at is $71,000 at 67%, and it's 182 for 84. So for 15% more or less, it costs a lot of money for the different cost. So I guess the more money you pay, it isn't necessarily the percentage that you're going to get.
Go ahead, Mr. Lazari.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so the percentage in terms of this proposal for the value submitted by each consultant is very minimal. We also take into consideration the consultant's proposals weighing against our budget of $200,000. That being said, some of these proposals are just very poorly written against the criteria within the request for proposals.
And my last question, Chair, is when we do the operation side, when we have the different companies bidding and the lowest person doesn't get it, they have the opportunity to appeal. Can the same thing happen with this bid going? It wouldn't be the county, it'd be the board. Does that make sense to you? The lowest bidder can appeal.
No, thank you, and I'll help out Dennis a little bit on this one. Yeah, so the difference between operations and here, in this particular one, operations typically deals with tenders. Tenders are apples to apples, right? And it's You pave a kilometer, you pave a kilometer. There's really only one way to pave a kilometer. It's an exact issued tender with a design in place. This one was a request for a quote or a proposal. It was a request for a proposal. So we asked them generically, do you do building condition assessments? And I'm sure in this one, how do you do it? What's your methodology? How do you do it? So they all, of 13 of them or whatever, 11 of them, they all brought a different methodology to how they will arrive at their answers. And the committee would have gotten together and assessed them all together to say which submission and proposal best suits what we require of our needs. And that was scored accordingly. There's typically not an appeal process because they just did not score. They can ask for their scoring and how they scored, which is now public. They will see that. But that's about it. There's no appeal. The decision made of the board is a decision made of the board.
Yes, Councillor from down at Petawawa.
Thank you, Chair. Through you. So in light of this line of questioning, the winning bid had a total score of 84%, and it cost $182,000. There is a bid with a score of 80%, which is only 4 points lower, but the actual bid is $100,000 cheaper. So was any consideration given to, that's still a pretty good points score at 80, and it's quite a bit of savings. So is any consideration given to a bid like that is scored pretty close, but much cheaper? Or is it just that the 84 score is the one we want and nothing else?
Go ahead, Dennis.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so there aren't just another consulting firm who occasionally dabbles in building condition assessments. Rothiums, they specifically focus in building condition assessments, whereas many of the others are consulting firms and do this on the side. During our evaluation process, it's not solely about awarding the most points to the lowest bid. We also factor in the calculation based on how closely they align with our estimate. So that being said, Rothium's tender, they didn't just meet our requirements, but they also intuitive understanding of what the BCA's demand. And while they weren't the cheapest, their track record and dedication made them our top contender. We reviewed references by both Rothium's and Paradigm. And Rothium's had stellar references, and concluding they had impressive work with the Toronto Housing Authority and the Government of Manitoba. And on the flip side, the second place proposal, Paradigm, had references that raised some concerns. One reference being the County of Renfrew with a retired employee as the reference. And the second reference we called was not the correct number. However, Paradigm did receive additional points because they had done work for the county over 15 years ago for the BCA process. So that is why overall they were very close. It was just, we did take into consideration their references, and Rothium's just stands out to be the best, and that's what we're looking for.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? I see none, so then we will move on to the Planning Services Division report, and Mr. Howarth, please.
Thank you, Chair. The planning report can be found on page 59 of your agenda package. The first information item is a topic that we've heard quite a bit about or mentioned previously with regards to just an update on staffing and approvals timeline. So as previously mentioned by Director Davis, to date, the Planning Division, we have not been successful in finding a qualified candidate to fill the county planner position. We have engaged a part-time consultant to assist with some applications like consent reports, but this is not a replacement for a full-time position, and essentially the division is operating with 2 less planners than this time last year. So we are working hard to keep files moving. We have had to prioritize files. So for example, when we provide a lot of local support or to municipalities for their approvals, such as zoning bylaw amendments, site plan approvals, or minor variances, some of these now have penalties attached to them if the municipality does not process them within certain timeframes. So we've put the highest priority on these local approvals, and so that municipalities don't get penalized. And so far, I don't think any municipalities have been penalized that we've been providing that service to. So those are our highest priorities. But the reality is, we are not keeping up with our desired approvals, and we are being delayed despite our best efforts. And we know that local municipalities are hearing concerns from ratepayers, and we are hearing it here at the county as well with regards to application review and approval. And we are doing our best. And for example, like the Township of Horton has recently requested us to attend a council meeting there because they've heard it from their ratepayers concerns about the approval. So they've asked us to attend provide information with regards to why there is this increase. It's not a situation that's unique to the county. This is a problem across Ontario and also just within our other local municipalities who are also struggling to find assistance with planning. So some municipalities have been reaching out to us for additional support, and unfortunately, while we normally in years past would eagerly and be very willing to help out with our local municipalities, unfortunately we've had to decline just because we don't have the resources to assist. And in addition, we've had to delay starting projects such as comprehensive zoning bylaws where we had anticipated undertaking these projects for local municipalities. Unfortunately, just because of our current staffing situation, we've had to delay starting these projects. So even if we are successful in the upcoming months to hire a planner, I don't see this as being an immediate fix. Like there will be a delay as we get that planner up to staff and up to speed. So they're with training and onboarding. So it's anticipated that even after we are successful with finding that planner, there will be a lag time before we start seeing some improvements in these approval times. And the last couple of paragraphs are just information with regard, in addition to the large workload that we have, there are certain projects that council have been aware of, that you've been involved in making decisions on, where they're taking longer because of some misinformation or that is being spread by certain groups or on social media with regards to municipalities' ability under the Planning Act to actually plan or to pass bylaws. And so we've seen this with the county official plan amendment when we were trying to make changes to update it to keep in line with provincial requirements. Whitewater Region had this issue that they had to deal with when there was an official plan amendment for the boundary review for Cobden, and also are currently dealing with it with regards to the update to the Killu-Haggerty-Richard zoning bylaw. So as a result of a lot of this misinformation that is being spread, it takes up a lot of staff time and a lot of effort. There's a lot of emails and a lot of phone calls that we receive and that we have to deal with, and we are doing our best. We've provided legal opinions out there and reports to dispel several of these claims, and we're continuing to work on better communication using other tools such as the Zin City website that we have, and also just providing information to local municipalities to help the local municipalities answer questions directly when if they get ratepayers with concerns or if they hear some of these rumors that are being spread. So I'll leave it at that. So we are experiencing some challenges, and we're trying to work through them our best we can, and just provide an update to council that you may hear from ratepayers that they're not happy with the approvals, and we are obviously doing the best that we can at the time, but there's just some realities of this. We can only do so much with the staffing resources that we have, and we are doing our best and prioritizing certain files to make sure local municipalities are not penalized. I'll move on to number 2, Chair. Item 2 is just an update with regards to subdivision activity. So in addition to it being a little short-staffed, during the last month, we received 6 applications for subdivisions, which is great news. Typically, we average 3 to 4 a year, so getting 6 in 1 month is it's great, but also comes again with a lot of workload. So we're in the process right now of circulating these applications for review to local municipalities and all the agencies required under the Planning Act, including our peer reviewers and the public. The 6 subdivisions are listed there. There's 3 of them within the Township of Greater Madawaska, all within a pretty close proximity to each other. There's an application in McNabb-Braeside, 1 in Laurentian Valley, and 1 in Petawawa. And as a result of, again, changes by the province to the Planning Act, there will be no more public meetings for these subdivisions. So these will be processed by the County of Renfrew. There's public notice, so there's a sign that will be posted on the property, and all of the information has again we've been using that Zen City website to provide that information to the public so they can see it. But at the end of the day, there is no public meeting required under the Planning Act, and also there is no public appeal for this. So that decision will be made by the County of Renfrew and be moving forward. Item number 3 is an update with regards to some of the services that our GIS division has been providing. The GIS team worked with our EMS, and using the enterprise license agreement software with Esri, we were able to host different applications that the paramedics were able to use on their cell phones to capture and display data. Then with regards to homelessness. So the GIS team created an application using the software Survey 123. And the paramedics went out on their homelessness survey and were able to intake that information on their phone. And then when the GIS team was able to take that and create a web map and a dashboard that would display those collected results. Item number 4 is another information with regards to GIS and some of the upcoming challenges that we're going to be having, and it will also be included in the discussion for consideration in the 2024 budget. And this is regarding our online mapping system that we have. So the county planning staff, we rely on this quite a bit for our processes. I know local municipalities rely on this software quite a bit as well, especially when it comes down to creating mailing lists and mailing labels. It's also used by our Public Works Department and Emergency Services as well. So our current Verde GIS, the current software is set to be retired in 2024, and to upgrade it to the newest version of JavaScript, we have to migrate that data over. So it would come at a one-time cost in addition to our yearly servicing or agreement for that website of $62,000. So we're looking at various options and we'll be coming forward in through the budget consideration, hopefully with more information, because this is sort of rolling out in real time. We're trying to look at a bunch of different options. Those include continuing the hosting partnership with Verde GIS and moving forward with the migration and to update to this latest version of the software. We could move forward with the installation of our own server. So instead of having somebody else host it internally. Again, there will be a cost to that, and having to purchase servers and then all the internal staff time to undertake that process. Option number 3 is we're looking at creating our own web-based mapping, but it would lose a lot of the functionality that we currently have. So we would not be able to do the mail notification, municipal plan review function, or have access to, for example, severance data. So local municipalities wouldn't be able to see that type of information any longer on that online platform. And option 4 is just to end our agreement with Verde GIS and also not provide any online mapping moving forward. So, but more information will be coming as we sort of explore those options and understand what the costs are related to those different options. Item number 5 was an information with regards to a webinar that we attended on November 9th. And it was actually one of the best ones I've been to. It was very informative and a lot of good discussion and communication, looking at the ongoing issue of school closures, particularly in rural areas. And looking at, there's a study that's being conducted by the universities of Queen's, Waterloo, Guelph, Victoria, and Western. They're all working together and looking at the decision-making process and consequences of school closures in Ontario, and specifically for our rural communities, and looking at how to update and different guidelines with regards to those reviews. And hopefully we'll be provided with that report once it's done. But it was a very good discussion about a lot of the concerns with regards to rural school closures and how a lot of times these schools, while the school board looks at them from a strict, purely educational purposes, people living in these communities know that they provide much more than that. They're a community hub. When a rural community school closes, oftentimes that sort of starts I won't call it a vicious cycle, almost like a death spiral. As soon as that school closes, then you have less families that are likely to move into that area if they have, looking at long busing times, and then all of a sudden starts this vicious cycle of once that school closes, the whole community and the whole hamlet can suffer. So it was interesting discussion, and when that report becomes available, we can bring that back to the committee. Information item 6 is just an update with regards to the climate action plan. So staff, we are working with Ainsworth, who was awarded the RFP for this project. We've created a working group here at the county to provide the data to Ainsworth that that they've asked for to prepare the plan. So we've getting people from Public Works, from EMS, and also from our property division to provide information with regards to our fleet and buildings so that they can continue with their work. And Ainsworth is also going to be working on a communication plan, and they anticipate coming to make a presentation to County Council hopefully early in 2024. Information item number 7, student planner position. So back in March of 2021, and then it was further updated in August of 2021, Council approved the continuance of a program for hiring a co-op or planning internship program. So we were initially successful in getting a co-op student or an intern who came to the county, and that actually ended up turning into a full-time position. And unfortunately, that person who was great moved on to the Township of Whitewater region, so it's to their gain. But based on this initial success, we're recommending that this become a permanent year-round placement. So typically a co-op placement is about a 4-month period, and so for the year it would be 3 different student planners that we would hopefully bring to the county. And with that type of turnover, the amount of workload that the student is able to accomplish, or the benefit, I'll say, would be limited compared to a full-time position. Actually, by the time you take into consideration the effort to train and provide guidance to that person, there's, I'm not sure how much work that benefit with that student planner would put towards reducing some of our timelines. But one of the biggest advantages that we're hoping to achieve is to create that planner pipeline to Renfrew County by bringing students in, providing them training here, having them familiar with their area. We're hoping that these co-op positions would eventually turn into full-time planners available for either the county to tap into as needed, or local municipalities as well to fill some of their vacancies. So we'll be including that position to be as a discussion item for the 2024 budget. And that's the end of the information items. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Howarth. So we'll go back to information item number 1. That's the staffing update and approvals timeline. Comments, questions? Item number 2 is the subdivision activity. Yes, Councillor from Greater Madawaska.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I've been getting questions, and I know the process, but do we have a public document to show the new process that there's no public input into subdivisions once they've been approved? Do we have something that we can send a link to people who ask questions like, why didn't we have a consultation on this as the public? Just something so that an education side of it saying these are the changes and a Cole's notes of it, if dating myself saying Cole's notes, but something like that we can direct people to.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Yes, so with the new process of not having any public meeting or appeal rights for the public, what we have been using is the Zen City software, and I've created a web page. So everybody that meets the Planning Act requirements, so there's a public notice that we are required to put. We've included a QR code on that, as well as information where to access that Zen City webpage. And in addition, there's a big sign that has to be posted on these subdivision properties, and that QR code will also be on that sign. So that anybody who wants information about the subdivision, all they have to do is scan that QR code, and there will be a link to the application, all of the supporting studies, and on that and future steps of how that application will be processed. And so on Zen City, it is clear, we may put it right in there several times, that there is no public meeting there's no more public meeting process with regards to these plans of subdivision. But all the information is available to anybody who wants to see it. So we can either provide that link to them either through a QR code or just by providing the address to that Renfrew County Zen City site. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor from Town of Barnbriar.
Thank you, Chair. To Bruce, yes to the Zen City. As a resident, I'm not happy with the Zen City. I go in there, I read it all about it, and I don't like the environmental study, whatever was given for that. My opportunity is then to go to my municipality and say, hey, I got a problem with that.
Through you, Chair. So no, not to your local municipality. So plans of subdivisions are county approvals. So they should be coming to the County of Renfrew.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions on item number 2? Item number 3 is the emergency services and the homelessness survey. Great information as well. Item number 4 is the County of Renfrew online hosted web mapping application. Comments, questions? Seeing none, item number 5 is the webinar on school closures in Ontario. Again, I think I would agree that this is timely because it's a decision-making guideline that I think needs to be reviewed and some updates provided. Item number 6 is the Climate Action Plan. And item number 7 is the student planner position. Oh, Councillor from Laurentian Valley.
Looking at number 7 and considering number 1, have you considered having like an introductory full-time position to become a planner, or is that possible? If somebody who's computer savvy, knew well how to navigate on the computer system, pick up some of the other programs, it wouldn't be a full-time, I guess, planner that you're really looking for, but it'd be homegrown type thing, and I was just wondering if that would be worth any consideration.
Through you, Chair. So we have considered a number of options, and that some of them are challenging. So we have thought about whether or not we could just hire somebody, just like you said, homegrown, and start training them into that position. And it comes with challenges, and it's, I guess, at the end of the day, it's possible, but at the end, it's something that's possible, but it's not our preferred option. Our preferred option is to hire and find somebody who is qualified and has their training, has been attended a accredited program, is moving forward to their professional designation is our preferred option, as opposed to hiring I'll say an inexperienced person.
Supplementary.
Is the training program available virtually that a homegrown could take that course while working at the same time? I mean, how many months has it been since you've had these 2 positions vacant? And how soon do you think we can fill them?
Through you, Chair. So the position has been vacant since February. And this is a challenge that's all across Ontario. Everybody's fighting each other and trying to, I'll say, poach each other's planners from different municipalities. So it's not a challenge that's unique to Renfrew County. It's not our location or our pay scale. It's just there is a lack of planners out there, and so everybody is competing to get them. The program itself, so it is a university level program that we're looking for, and so there are universities that offer a degree of online learning or through correspondence. So there may be that option for people who are looking to do it, but it is a 4-year degree to complete.
Thank you. Councillor from Town of Renfrew and then Greater Madawaska.
Thank you, Chair. Bruce, with the 4-month window that you've got the 3 individuals coming in, the first one is a super guy. Can you extend them for another 4 months?
Through you, Chair. So typically when you're working with the university for a co-op program, they would do one program, like a co-op placement for 4 months, then they would go back to school for a term, and they alternate like that. I would not, if we could somebody very good that's competent, maybe at their next co-op placement, we can specifically ask or work with them to try to get them back into our area. But I don't think that you can do them consecutively usually, but that's based on the school. But yeah.
Yeah, Councillor from Greater Madawaska.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. A couple of months ago, they had the Ontario Professional Planners Institute conference in Ottawa, and I had the opportunity to speak to university students from York University, Queen's, and Waterloo. And in our little discussion afterwards there were so many of them that their planning education is actually being paid for by cities over in Europe. And they know exactly where they're going to work over in Europe because they've been recruited, and their university's being paid for if they commit to a 3-year term in a city in Europe. So there was an overwhelming amount of them like that. So that's also putting a stress on our planners available to us in this country. So it's much like it's in the medical profession, it's being done as well. So just to clarify, that's one of the issues we're having about getting planners. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, then I'll go back to you, Mr. Howarth, for the resolution.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll read the recommendation that the Development and Property Committee recommends that County Council provide direction to staff to undertake an official plan amendment to introduce alternative notice policies for Planning Act applications, and further that a letter be sent under the warden's signature in support of the resolution from the Corporation of the Municipality of Wawa, requesting the provincial government to make an amendment to the Legislations Act 2006 to include digital publications as an acceptable means of publication and notice requirements for provincial acts and regulations.
Thank you, Mr. Howarth. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by the councillor from Greater Madawaska, seconded by councillor from Town of McNabb Braeside. And please go ahead with the background.
Thank you, Chair. So as many committee members will be aware, recently it was announced that Metroland is shutting down its print division. And this is a challenge that many municipalities are seeing across Ontario, not with just Metroland, but other print-based newspapers. It has left the County of Renfrew and several of our local municipalities without a print paper that reaches to the masses of the public to meet our requirements to satisfy the Planning Act with regards to notification. There is a section under the Planning Act where municipalities can do alternative notices and provide, so other than just providing it into the newspaper, but to be able to use those provisions, we have to have appropriate official plan policies in place to spell out exactly how are we going to engage the public and meet that requirement for public notification without the newspaper. So we're recommending that an official plan amendment be undertaken by the County of Renfrew to include those special provisions into our official plan, so that for those municipalities that no longer have a print edition of a newspaper, that they can have another alternative way of making sure that the public is notified. And we include sort of a draft. So this is something that many municipalities, again, across Ontario are experiencing and having this challenge. And so I've included an example of policy from a different municipality that they've undertaken this same project, or the same proposal. And so there is an example of what an official plan amendment would look like and what those alternative notice provisions would look like. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'll turn to the committee. Comments or questions? Seeing none, then I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that's carried. And then could I get a mover and a seconder for the report as a whole? Moved by Councillor from down at Petawawa, seconded by Councillor from Laurentian Valley. Comments? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's carried. Is there any new business? We have no closed meeting at this time, so I'll need a mover and a seconder for adjournment. Moved by Councillor from Town of Arnprior, seconded by Councillor from Horton. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you all very much. We are adjourned.